Rejection. It cuts deeper than a knife, doesn't it? It isn't just about being dismissed. It's about being made to feel like you weren't enough, like your presence was a burden, like all that you gave, all that you were was insignificant. And so they left. They walked away. Maybe they thought they could do better. Maybe they convinced themselves you were replaceable, that someone else could offer more, be more, satisfy more. And in that moment, it hurt. You felt the sting of being discarded, the weight of every memory that suddenly seemed meaningless in their eyes. You questioned yourself, replaying conversations, trying to pinpoint where things went wrong. You searched for answers that never came, closure that was never granted. And as they moved on, seemingly unaffected, completely unbothered, you sat with the silence, the void they left behind. But here's the irony. That silence, that absence, it doesn't just echo in your world. It starts to echo in theirs. Because what people fail to realize is that not everyone is replaceable. Not every connection can be duplicated. Not every presence can be substituted. At first, they're convinced they've made the right decision. They dive headfirst into new experiences, new people, new distractions. They chase what they believe is better. But something is off. Something is missing. At first, it's just a whisper, a fleeting thought, a passing memory. Then it becomes a feeling, a subtle emptiness they can't quite place, a hollowness in conversations, a lack of depth in interactions. And suddenly, without warning, they find themselves searching for you in every person they meet. They try to find your laughter in someone else's voice, your understanding in someone else's words, your warmth in someone else's touch. But no one fits, because they didn't just lose a person, they lost an experience, a presence, a force in their life that was uniquely yours. And that realization, it haunts them. They scroll through old messages, resisting the urge to reach out. They revisit the places you once shared, expecting to feel whole, only to be met with emptiness. They laugh at jokes that no longer feel as funny because the person who once made them meaningful is no longer there. This is the part they never tell you, the part that no one warns them about. See, rejection is often made to look like a clean break, a firm decision, a door slammed shut, but it isn't. It lingers. It follows them in the quiet moments, in the pauses between conversations, in the stillness of their nights. They thought they were choosing freedom. They thought they were choosing something greater, but in reality, they were choosing absence. And now that absence is staring them in the face, demanding to be acknowledged. You don't see their regret because pride won't let them show it. You won't hear them admit they made a mistake because ego won't let them speak it. They will pretend, they will pretend, they will post, they will laugh, they will surround themselves with people who serve as temporary distractions, but distractions don't heal. There will come a day, a moment, an hour, a late night realization, when the weight of what they lost becomes too heavy to ignore, when their pride is no longer enough to mask the truth. And when that day comes, it won't be your burden to carry, because while they are haunted by what they lost, you are no longer waiting to be found. Rejection often comes from short-sightedness. People think they know what they're doing when they walk away. They make their choices with confidence, convinced they're stepping into something better, something more exciting, something that makes them feel powerful. But here's the mistake. They only see what's in front of them, not what's ahead. They operate from impulse, from the illusion that what's familiar is holding them back, and that the unknown holds something greater. They believe the grass is greener on the other side, until they step over and realize it's artificial. At first, they celebrate their decision. They walk with pride, fueled by the thrill of something new. They tell themselves they made the right choice, convincing themselves you were never that important. But time is a patient teacher, and reality is relentless. As days turn to weeks and weeks turn to months, they begin to notice something unsettling. The excitement fades, the novelty wears off, and the so-called better life starts to feel empty. That's when the cracks begin to show, The same lips that once spoke sweet words now deliver empty promises. The same person they left you for starts to reveal their flaws. The admiration they once had for someone new crumbles under the weight of unmet expectations, and suddenly it clicks. You were not the problem. You were not the obstacle. You were the foundation, the stability, the depth they failed to appreciate. But now it's too late. They sit in silence, staring at the choices they made, haunted by the reality they refuse to consider. They remember your kindness, the way you were always there, the way you made them feel safe. They remember your patience, your support, the moments you stood by them when no one else did. But the very thing they took for granted is now the thing they crave the most. And here's the best part. You don't need to lift a finger for revenge. Their own choices are punishing them. Their own foolishness has led them straight into the consequences they so arrogantly ignored. They wanted freedom, now they have it. They wanted space, now they're drowning in it. They thought they could replace you, now they're realizing some people can't be replaced. And you're no longer waiting, you're no longer watching. You're too busy becoming everything they'll never have again. Your absence speaks louder than your presence ever did. Silence is a powerful thing. When you were around, they never truly listened. They heard your words, but they didn't absorb them. They felt your presence, but they never valued it. They were comfortable, so comfortable that they believed you would always be there. That was their mistake. Because now, in your absence, they are forced to hear the one thing they never expected. At first, they pretend it doesn't matter. They fill their days with distractions, their nights with noise. They surround themselves with new people, trying to recreate the feeling they once had with you. But here's where karma plays its role. No matter how many people they meet, no one measures up. The conversations are empty, the connections are shallow, the laughter feels forced. And when the lights go out, when the world quiets down, there's no one left to distract them, the silence grows louder. They thought they were punishing you by leaving. They thought they were moving on, starting fresh, writing a new chapter. But now they realize that the story was never about leaving you behind. It was about losing themselves in the process. Because what they failed to understand is this: you were not just another person in their life. You were the voice of reason, the warmth in their cold moments, the anchor that kept them from drifting into emptiness. And now, without you, they are lost. They check their phone, scrolling mindlessly, fighting the urge to reach out. They see reminders of you everywhere, a song, a phrase, a familiar scent that sends them spiraling. They want to call, to text, to see if you still care. But they hesitate, because deep down they know they no longer have the right. They rejected you. They chose this path, and now they must walk it alone. You don't need to remind them of what they lost. Life is already doing that for you. Every moment they spend searching for a replacement, every empty interaction they endure, every attempt to convince themselves they made the right choice, it all adds to the weight of their regret. And the most satisfying part? You're thriving. You're not just moving on. You're moving up. You're growing, evolving, becoming a version of yourself that no longer needs their validation, their acceptance, or their presence. They left you behind thinking you were replaceable, but now they are haunted by your absence, realizing too late that some losses are permanent, and this time it's their loss to bear, not yours. They search for you in others, but no one measures up. They thought leaving you behind meant they were moving on to something better. Maybe they believed they had found someone who was more exciting, more interesting, or more suited to their tastes. Maybe they convinced themselves that you were holding them back and that life outside of you would be thrilling and effortless. But reality has a way of humbling people. At first, they enjoy the rush of something new. They dive into new connections, eager to prove to themselves that they made the right decision. The conversations feel fresh. The experiences feel different. And for a moment, they believe they've upgraded. But here's what happens. Slowly, piece by piece, they begin to notice the differences. The new person doesn't understand them like you did. The laughter isn't as genuine. The comfort, the familiarity, the sense of belonging, it's all missing. They try to ignore it. They tell themselves they just need time to adjust. But deep down, something doesn't feel right. The new relationships are surface level. The excitement fades quickly. There's no depth, no substance, nothing that makes them feel truly seen. And that's when the haunting begins. It starts with small things. They hear a joke and instinctively think of how you would have reacted. They pass by a place you both used to visit and suddenly their mind drifts back to you. They hear a song, a phrase, or see something you once talked about, and the memories flood in like a tidal wave. They shake it off, pretending they don't care, but the thoughts keep returning. No matter where they go, no matter who they meet, they are subconsciously comparing every person to you. And no one measures up, because you were never just a temporary fixture in their life. You were an experience, a presence, a feeling they can't seem to replicate no matter how hard they try. They assume they could replace you, like switching out an old phone for a newer model, but people don't work that way. True connection isn't interchangeable. Real love, real loyalty, real companionship. It's not something they can just pick up off a shelf. And now they're frustrated, confused, angry at themselves for feeling this way. They don't want to admit they miss you. So instead, they start searching harder. More people, more dates, more distractions, anything to fill the void you left behind. But no matter how many faces they encounter, no one can match what you brought into their life. The laughter doesn't feel the same. The conversations lack meaning. The chemistry feels forced. This is where karma plays its role. The very thing they ran from, your presence, your love, your consistency, has become the thing they now desperately crave, but it's gone. They destroyed it with their own hands. And now, as they sit in the silence of their choices, they are left with nothing but the echoes of what once was. And you don't need to do anything. Life is already making them realize that they had something real, something rare, and they threw it away for nothing. They rejected you, believing they could find something better. Now they're haunted by the truth. There was never anything better than you. Regret creeps in slowly but hits hard. Regret is a silent poison. It doesn't strike all at once. It starts as a whisper in the back of the mind, a tiny voice reminding them of what they lost. At first, they dismiss it. They tell themselves they made the right choice. They distract themselves with work, with new people, with anything that can keep them from thinking too much. But regret is patient. It lingers. It waits for the perfect moment to strike. And it always does. It usually happens when they least expect it. Maybe they're alone at night, scrolling through their phone, stumbling upon an old conversation with you. Maybe they hear your name in passing, and suddenly they feel a pang of something they can't quite place. Maybe they catch a glimpse of you, whether in person or online, looking happy, thriving, moving on without them. And that's when the first real wave of regret hits. They start to wonder, did I make a mistake? At first they push the thought away. They don't want to admit they were wrong. Their pride won't let them. But the feeling keeps growing. They remember the little things, your kindness, your patience, the way you understood them better than anyone else. They recall the times you forgave them when they didn't deserve it, the times you showed up for them when no one else did. And suddenly they realize something that terrifies them. They didn't just lose a relationship. They lost a once-in-a-lifetime connection. And now it's too late. You see, regret isn't just about missing someone. It's about realizing that you destroyed something that can't be fixed. That the door you slammed shut isn't going to open again. That the one person who truly cared for you, who gave you their all, is no longer waiting. The pain of rejection is one thing, but the pain of knowing you caused your own suffering is something else entirely. They sit with that weight, that unbearable truth that gnaws at them in quiet moments. They look at their reflection and see someone who thought they had it all figured out, only to find themselves empty, alone, drowning in their own choices. And the worst part, they can't go back. They could try to reach out. They could send a message, make a call, test the waters to see if you're still there. But something stops them: fear, shame, the knowledge that they no longer have the right, because they know deep down that you're no longer the same person they walked away from. You've grown. You've healed. You've stepped into your power. And that realization, it's the final nail in the coffin of their regret. So they stay silent. They suffer in the shadows. They scroll through your pictures, wondering what could have been. They watch from a distance, seeing you live the life they could have been part of. And it eats them alive. Because regret isn't just about loss, it's about knowing that the one person you truly needed was the one you let go. And that is a pain they will carry forever. Their ego won't let them admit they were wrong. Pride is a dangerous thing. It convinces people that they are always right, even when their world is falling apart because of their own decisions. It tells them that admitting a mistake is a sign of weakness when in reality, it's the only way to fix what's broken. But the people who rejected you, the ones who walked away as if you meant nothing, are now trapped by the very thing that once made them feel powerful, their own ego. At first, they felt unstoppable. They made their decision to leave, to push you aside, to act as if you were just another chapter in their story that they had outgrown. They thought they were in control, that they could rewrite their life without you and everything would be better. They stood tall, convinced that they had made the right choice. They were smug, certain that they would never look back. But then, slowly, the cracks began to show. It didn't happen overnight. It never does. Regret, like a slow-moving poison, seeped into their thoughts. At first, it was subtle. A moment of silence where they found themselves thinking about you when they shouldn't have been. A song that played in the background that reminded them of a time when they were happier than they are now. A familiar phrase spoken by someone new, but it didn't sound quite right. It didn't sound like you. Then the regret grew louder. The emptiness became undeniable. They began to see all the things they had ignored before. The way you supported them, the way you understood them, the way you were patient with them when they were difficult, how you stood by their side even when they didn't deserve it. They realized that no one else would ever treat them with the same level of care, with the same depth of love. And yet they won't admit it, because admitting it would mean confronting their own flaws. It would mean acknowledging that they were wrong about you, about the situation, about themselves. It would mean undoing the illusion they built around their decision to walk away. And their ego won't let them do that. So instead, they pretend. They pretend they're fine. They post pictures with fake smiles. They force laughter in conversations that feel empty. They surround themselves with distractions, new people, new experiences, anything that can drown out the truth that is screaming inside them. But deep down, they know. They know they made a mistake. They might even think about reaching out. Their fingers hover over their phone, drafting a message they never send. They might scroll through your social media looking for signs that you still care, that you're still affected by what happened. They might even ask mutual friends about you, fishing for information in a way that doesn't make them look weak. But every time they think about apologizing, about admitting they were wrong, their pride stops them. What if they've moved on? What if they don't care anymore? What if I look pathetic? The fear of rejection, the same rejection they once put you through, now grips them. The irony is poetic now. They are the ones terrified of being ignored, of being forgotten, of being treated as an afterthought. They wonder if you still think about them, if you still hold any space for them in your heart. But what scares them the most is the possibility that you don't, that you've outgrown the pain, that you've become stronger, that their absence no longer affects you the way yours affects them. So they stay silent. They let their ego keep them prisoner. They tell themselves that reaching out would be useless, that too much time has passed, that you probably wouldn't even care to hear from them. And maybe they're right. Maybe by now you've found your peace. Maybe you've found someone who sees your worth without needing to lose you first. Maybe you've built a life that no longer includes them in any way, shape, or form. And that thought, it haunts them. Because they expected you to always be there. They thought you'd always care, that you'd always be waiting. But now, as they sit alone with their thoughts, as they replay every memory in their head, they realize the harshest truth of all: they were never as important to you as they thought they were. You moved on. You healed. You stopped looking back. And now they are the ones stuck in the past, drowning in regret, trapped by the very pride that once made them believe they didn't need you. That is karma. That is justice. Not through revenge, not through anger, not through chasing them down and demanding closure. No, the greatest revenge is silence. The greatest revenge is living a life so full, so beautiful, that they become nothing more than a distant memory, a ghost of a past mistake they can never undo. And their ego will be the very thing that keeps them from ever fixing it, because they will never be able to admit to you or to themselves that they lost the best thing that ever happened to them. And that is a pain they will carry forever. Your value was never theirs to define. For the longest time, they made you feel like you weren't enough. They acted as if your presence in their life was ordinary, something they could take or leave without a second thought. They made you question yourself, made you wonder if you were too much or maybe not enough. They treated your kindness like a weakness, your love like a burden. And then one day they walked away. They thought they were making a choice for themselves, a choice that would lead them to something better. Maybe they even believed they were doing you a favor, convinced that you needed them more than they needed you. But here's the truth: they never understood your value was never theirs to define. They thought by leaving, by rejecting you, by making you feel like you were replaceable, they could rewrite the narrative. But they forgot one simple thing: rejection doesn't lower your worth, it reveals theirs. Because the way a person treats someone who gave them nothing but loyalty and love is a reflection of them, not you. At first, maybe you didn't see it. Maybe their rejection hit you like a storm, leaving you drowning in self-doubt. You asked yourself questions that should never have crossed your mind. What did I do wrong? Was I not enough? Could I have done something differently? But time has a way of bringing clarity. And as the days passed, as the wounds healed, as the silence between you grew longer, something shifted. You began to realize that the issue was never with you, it was with them. Because valuable people are never truly lost. Those who recognize worth do not walk away from it. Those who see value do not discard it like yesterday's news. And those who have something real do not gamble it away for temporary distractions. They thought leaving you meant they were gaining freedom, but in reality they were losing security. They believed they were walking towards something better, but instead they were stepping into uncertainty. And while they were busy chasing illusions, they failed to see the truth staring them in the face. They left behind something irreplaceable. And now, as they sit alone, scrolling through their phone, seeing the life you've built without them, the regret is unbearable. Because what's worse than losing someone? Knowing that you lost them because of your own arrogance. Knowing that you walked away from something that will never come back. Knowing that no matter how hard you try, you can't undo the past. They thought you needed their validation to be valuable. They thought their acceptance to find your worth. But now, as they watch you rise, as they see you glow in ways they never expected, they are faced with the truth: your value was never in their hands. It was never their decision to make. And now that realization haunts them. You see, people don't recognize what they had until they see it thrive without them. They don't appreciate kindness until they are met with cold indifference. They don't value consistency until they are faced with temporary, meaningless connections. And they don't understand love until it is no longer freely given to them. This is where the pain sets in. They see you smiling and it stings. They hear about your success and it burns. They thought you would struggle without them. They thought you would crumble, that you would spend your days missing them, longing for their presence. But instead you did the unthinkable: you flourished. You became stronger. You stopped seeking their validation. And now they're the ones questioning themselves. They wonder if they were wrong. They wonder if they made a mistake. They wonder if you ever think about them. But the difference between you and them is that you have already made peace with the past. They are the ones still haunted by it. They rejected you, believing they held all the power. But in the end, the real power was always yours. Because you get to decide who has access to you. You get to decide who benefits from your energy, your kindness, your love. And the most painful lesson they will ever learn is that once they lose that privilege, it never returns. So let them sit in their regret. Let them wrestle with their choices. Because while they are stuck in the past, drowning in memories of what once was, you are walking into a future that no longer includes them. And that, my friend, is a victory they never saw coming. By the time they realize it, it's too late. Regret has a timeline, but it doesn't show up when it's convenient. It arrives when the damage is already done. It starts as a whisper, a quiet reminder of what they once had. At first, they dismiss it, pushing it aside like an insignificant thought. But as time passes, that whisper turns into an ache, a deep sense of loss they can't ignore. The realization creeps in slowly, but when it finally hits, it hits hard. By the time they realize what they lost, by the time they finally understand your worth, it's too late. At first, they were confident in their decision. They walked away from you with a sense of power, believing they were in control. Maybe they thought you would always be there, waiting in the background, longing for their return. Maybe they assumed they could replace you, that you were just another person passing through their life, easily forgotten. But they were wrong. See, people don't notice the weight of a presence until it's gone. They don't recognize the comfort of stability until they are surrounded by chaos. They don't appreciate love until they are met with indifference. And when they finally open their eyes and see what they lost, the door has already closed. At first, they hesitate. They want to reach out. They rehearse the words in their mind, trying to craft the perfect message, the perfect excuse, the perfect way to sneak back into your life. They convince themselves that if they just say the right thing, if they just act as if nothing happened, maybe, just maybe, you'll let them back in. But there's one thing they never considered. You're no longer the same person they left behind. You are no longer waiting. You are no longer grieving their absence. You have moved on, grown, evolved into someone who no longer needs them. And that is a reality they never prepared for. Imagine the shock when they finally work up the courage to message you, only to be met with silence, or worse, polite indifference. They expected you to be eager, desperate for their return. Instead, they are met with a version of you that no longer sees them as important. The person they once had access to is gone, replaced by someone who has realized their own worth. That is where their real suffering begins. They scroll through your social media, searching for any sign that you miss them. They ask about you through mutual friends, hoping to hear that you still care, that you still think about them. They see you living your life, laughing, thriving, surrounded by people who value you in ways they never did. And every single time they check, every single time they hear about you, it feels like a knife twisting deeper, because they realize they are no longer a part of your story. This is the kind of regret that keeps people up at night, the kind of regret that settles in their chest like a weight they can't shake. They think about the moments they took for granted, the words they left unspoken, the times they could have appreciated you but didn't. And now they're trapped in a cycle of what is a cycle they created with their own choices. What if they had treated you differently? What if they had chosen to stay? What if they had appreciated you when they had the chance? But those questions have no answers, because no matter how much they wish they could turn back time, no matter how badly they want a second chance, the past cannot be rewritten. And now they are the ones who suffer. Because while they are stuck reliving their mistakes, you are walking into a future where they no longer exist. While they are haunted by memories of what they lost, you are creating new ones with people who truly see your worth. While they are longing for another chance, you are too busy embracing the life they never thought you would have without them. This is karma in its purest form, not revenge, not bitterness, but the simple consequence of their own actions. They made a choice and now they must live with it. They thought they could walk away without looking back, but instead they are the ones who can't let go. And by the time they finally understand what you are worth, you are already too far gone for it to matter. Regret is a slow poison. It doesn't strike like lightning, it seeps in, drop by drop, settling deep into the soul, making its presence known in the quietest moments. At first they don't feel it. They go on with their lives, unaware of what they've done, oblivious to the significance of the loss they just caused. They laugh, they celebrate their so-called freedom, convinced they have won. But time is the great equalizer, and sooner or later reality sets in. At first they dismiss the thought of you. It was just another chapter, they tell themselves. Life moves on.